I'm so excited today to have Donna Dube on the podcast. Donna is a certified director of operations, business growth strategist, and a host of the CEO Amplify podcast. She works with established online service-based business owners who are ready to make a bigger impact and maximize their profit. Donna's journey into the world of entrepreneurship began with her own ventures, where she encountered the roller coaster of challenges and successes that come with building an online business. These personal experiences gave her a profound understanding of the unique pressures that business owners face, especially in the digital landscape. With a keen eye for identifying opportunities within chaos and a knack for devising streamlined strategies, Donna became deeply committed to changing the narrative around entrepreneurship. Her mission became equipping business owners to shift from being overwhelmed by the daily grind to confidently steering their companies toward growth and sustainability. Donna, I'm so excited you're here. I've been looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, William.
Welcome to Catalytic Leadership, the podcast designed to help leaders intentionally grow and thrive. Here is your host, author, and leadership and executive coach, Dr. William Attaway.
I would love for you, Donna, to share some of your story with our listeners, particularly around your journey and development as an entrepreneurial leader. How did you get started?
So probably like many of your listeners, my journey is wavy and twisty, not narrow and straight.
Yeah. So common.
Yeah. So I came into this online space actually doing project management.
Mhm.
And so, I was hired by a client for a short period of time to manage a project with their team. And while I enjoyed doing that, I quickly realized there was so much more going on behind the scenes, right? And so many leaders, visionary leaders especially, drowning, if you want to put it that way, in their business.
Yeah.
And so that really intrigued me. I wanted to be able to dig in a little deeper and help them further. At the same time, I was going through my own journey of being a solopreneur and trying to do everything. And so while I was enjoying what I was doing, my family were wondering what happened to me. Mom, are you going to do, my husband, do we have any time together? And so it really came to a head when my husband said, something needs to change because what we're doing right now is going to break. And while I didn't really want to hear that, to be honest with you, I'm glad that he did say that because it saved me from getting to a point of serious burnout, right? And so at that point, I had to take a step back and really review and reflect and say, how can I grow this business without myself working 24/7? And I had to dive deeper into more than just delegate.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's the first thing people will say to you. Well, just hire a team member and delegate. But there's so much more under the surface. And so I was able to, establish a framework for myself, but then now also use that for my clients to really help them leverage three things: their time, their talent, and their tactics. So they can grow their business without working 24/7.
I want to dive into that because I think that's something that I hear so often in the entrepreneurial space. I work a lot with agency owners, right? And there's just this tension. They started the business usually for three big reasons, right? They wanted financial freedom, they wanted time freedom, and they wanted location freedom to be able to do what they do from anywhere. And then they traded their 9 to 5 for a 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. job.
Right.
And they're struggling and they're drowning, like you say. Like, do you see that as much as I do in the entrepreneurial space?
I think so, definitely. Because I think the piece that we're missing is that, yes, when we start our business, we're the everything, but we quickly need to be able to take off that hat and put on the CEO hat. And I know some listeners are going to be like, no, I'm not a CEO. That's corporate. I don't have a board of directors. I don't have a VP. But we really have to be thinking and acting like the leader of the business. And the bigger our business, the more revenue we want to make, the more time we need to spend in our week doing those CEO level tasks.
Mm.
And so I think it's really important that even if you are a solopreneur, you still have some time dedicated every single week to be doing those higher level tasks.
Yeah.
And probably you're going to say, well, what are those higher level tasks, right? And so it's different for everybody, but really we want to be looking at what tasks are directly tied to generating revenue.
Yeah.
And we need tasks every single week as the leader to do that. You'll hear people say we need time to work on our business, not always in our business.
Yeah, and I think that's a struggle, because you're in the weeds, you're doing the day to day, and there's this tension. You really struggle to step back from daily operations. You struggle to step back from working in it.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are some signs that you've seen that a business owner is spending too much time working in their business rather than on it? And are there some tips or suggestions you would make around how to transition to a healthier way of doing this?
So most of the clients that I see when they come to me, they've got an established business. They're selling whatever their signature offer is. They want to be able to grow more, but they can't. They're at full capacity.
Yeah.
So they're working longer hours than they want to be.
Mm.
And again, that doesn't have to be a 9 to 5, right?
Yeah.
You might be someone who likes to start work at 10 and ideally you want to finish at 3, but you're not doing that. Yeah. They're, going back to work in the evenings, they're working the weekends. And when I say working the weekends, it's because they feel they have to. It's not their choice. Well, nothing's going on. I think I'll just, open up the laptop and do something here. That's perfectly fine if you're choosing it purposefully. But if it's a state where I got to get this done and no one else can do it, I have to work on the weekend, that's working too much. Mm-hmm. Do you have time to step back and actually look at your strategy? Are you setting yearly goals and breaking those goals down into 90-day goals and actually following through on what those are? For so many of us, we set goals in, December, January, the beginning of the new year. And by March, those are out the window, right? We may not even know what they were. We're not certainly following or tracking that we're actually reaching those goals. So, really having that time every week to be able to say, where am I and where do I need to be?
No, I think that's brilliant. One of the challenges that I see with entrepreneurs as they begin to find success, they're really good at providing a product or a service. Mm. And as they begin to find success, they begin to have to hire other people to help them with fulfillment. Yeah. And all of a sudden they have a group of people that are looking to them to lead.
Yes.
And this is a whole struggle point and a pain point for so many entrepreneurs. Finding the right people, the first part of this, that's so critical and it's so crucial for business success. Yeah. Are there strategies that you have found that business owners can employ to identify and bring in the right people for their team?
And you'll be surprised to find that those strategies start long before you actually hire someone. So what I mean by that is, first, before you even put out that you need help, you have to be clear on what your mission and what your values are.
So good.
Mission, the people need to know because you want them to get on the same boat with you and row in the same direction. Yes. Right? So they need to know what you're about and what you want to build. Yeah. The values people need to know because it's so important to hire people who align with your values. Mm-hmm. Right? You can hire someone and teach them how to use your landing page software, your email software, or how to set up Zoom or whatever skill you need them to do. But you can't teach a value alignment. Yeah. Right? So if one of your values, for example, is to be punctual and on time, and the person you're looking to hire doesn't have that value, you're going to have friction. Right?
And when there's friction, that I find that entrepreneurs typically go one of two ways. They either ignore it, hoping that it will go away. Because if you ignore something long enough, usually it just fades away. You never have to deal with it, right?
Yes.
And we're both laughing because we know that's not the way that works, right? But that is a mindset that people get into. I'll just ignore it, it'll go away. Or they deal with it in an unhealthy way. Mm. And you talk about the importance of having good, difficult conversations
Mhm.
and how that's critical and inevitable for any business.
Yes.
Like, how do you coach leaders to have those difficult conversations?
And it's true, they are difficult for a reason, right? Because
Yeah,
most of us don't feel comfortable in that type of environment.
yeah.
But one of the biggest pieces of having this difficult conversation is to stay as objective as possible. And so, what I do when I work with my clients is say, what's the data? Right? I don't want to hear that, well, she complained yesterday and the other day before she didn't do this. What's the actual data? What were your expectations? And how is this person delivering? And where's the gap? If there is a gap, what have you done so far to try and make that gap smaller? Have you had any conversations with the person to try and say, okay, this is where you are, this is what I expect, next time let's move toward this? Have you made sure that the resources that the person needs to do the job is available for them? Right? If all of that is in place, you've had conversations with them and they're not meeting the expectations that you have, then when you come to this conversation, you have to bring the objective data. Keep the
Mm,
emotion out of it, uh,
mm,
because that's not what's going to help bring us forward, right? And
mm,
the second piece is to have this conversation as soon as possible.
mm.
Don't let something fester. You're festering about it, you're upset that they aren't doing XYZ. They too could be festering about something,
Yeah.
and that makes it worse. So hit it head on, bring it as soon as you can, and be as objective as you can.
I love that. I love the practicality of that. And I hope everybody listening just wrote those things down. A good friend of mine always says, bad news and difficult conversations are not like a fine wine. They do not get better with age. Shoving them
Mm.
under the carpet is not a good plan, a long-term strategy for success. And what you just dealt with there is so, so critical. Like, I really hope people heard and will begin to apply these things, because having difficult conversations well is a leadership skill that too few people are working on.
Mhm.
And I think it is so absolutely critical. I love that you talk about that, Donna, truly.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, if you're not sure what to say,
Yeah.
go to a Google Doc or something and put down some notes,
Yes.
right? The other
Yes.
person doesn't have to know that you have your notes up on your screen, right?
That's right.
But it just gives you some talking points so that you're not going off on the wrong tangent, right? I've even had clients practice with me. We're
Mm,
on Zoom and they're
yeah.
practicing as if
Role
I'm the
play it.
employee that they want
Yeah.
to talk to, right?
Yeah.
And so just having, that sounding board can be helpful.
You've worked with a lot of CEOs, as you have been working in the operations space. Are there habits that you've seen these CEOs have that have consistently led towards success? These daily routines that they incorporate in their lives?
For sure, I try to help them with 6 habits that I believe are critical to adopt as the CEO and the visionary leader of the business. And we touched on a couple of them, but one main one I wanted to say is what I call a CEO power hour, which
Mhm.
is like a CEO date with yourself. So if we think for a minute about big businesses, Microsoft, Nike, Apple, obviously they have a CEO, they have board of directors, and they have VPs who are reporting what's going on in the company in different areas, right? Sales, marketing, etc. We don't have that in our smaller businesses. But as leader, we still need to be keeping a pulse on what is happening in our business.
Mm,
And so this 1 hour is a time for you to work on your business, to take that step back, review and reflect and see what's happening. And so
mm,
it's 1 hour that you set up in your calendar, the same recurring time week after week. And
mm.
it's non-negotiable, meaning only a life catastrophe will get in the way of you not doing that 1 hour CEO power hour. And then really what you do is you're looking at a few metrics: what's working, what's not working, right? Your revenue goal is part of that. How many people are coming into your world is part of that. So that each week you're tracking these things. It doesn't have to take a lot of time, but you need to be aware of where you are. So if you have a revenue goal of a certain amount, you break that down to what your monthly goal is. And then you see, where am I? Am I on track to meet my monthly revenue goal? If not, what can I do to tweak or change, right? we do this to prevent going 6 months and then saying, oh, I'm way off from where I wanted to be, right? If we
Love
don't
that.
track it and measure it, we won't know where we are. And then the second part of this power hour is to really look at what are the priorities that I, as CEO, have to be doing this week, and naming those 3 top priorities, and then booking time on the calendar for them to happen. Because if you're anything like me, if it's not on your calendar, it's not happening.
That's outstanding. I live by my calendar, no doubt. And you calendar what is priority, right? You make the time for what's most important.
Yes.
I love the intentionality of what you're describing there.
And then the second piece that goes along with that power hour is your calendar, which I like to call your scheduling ninja. So you can have this ninja working for you or against you. I hope you all want it working for you. And so basically what you're going to do is you're going to start with a blank calendar and set up what your model, what your ideal calendar would look like for a week. So you're going to put in your family or your lifestyle obligations, right? So if you have a morning routine, you're going to block that off in your calendar. If you have a date night with your spouse, you're going to mark that off. If you have, pick up kids from school, whatever it is for you, but block that off first, because life needs to fit into your calendar. You don't need to be trying to squeeze life in around your business. So that's blocked off first. Second piece, decide what hours you're going to be open. And some people are going to say, but I'm an online business, I'm open all the time. People can buy from you all the time, sure, but you shouldn't be working all the time. So these are the set hours when you will be at your laptop. Your team and your clients know that if they contact you during these hours, you will get the message, you will see it, be able to respond. So you have your set hours, and that doesn't have to be 9 to 5, right? That's the flexibility that a lot of us wanted when we moved into entrepreneurship. So decide what that's going to be for you. Maybe it's a 10 to 3, maybe it's a 10 to noon and then 3 to 5, whatever that is for you, but block that off so you know these are the hours when I'm available. Yeah. And then within those hours, you want to block off time for these CEO level tasks, right? So just as an example, I'm recording obviously a podcast today. And so William has time in his calendar each week for doing these podcast recordings, right? It's not like, oh, let me see if I can find an hour somewhere to squeeze this in. No, this is an important part of his business, and it's blocked off every week. I'm doing podcast recording, right?
Yep.
And so having those times set for whatever your marketing, your sales, and your client delivery strategies are, you've got times blocked off for that. And then the final piece of this scheduling ninja is to have white space. Because while I believe in time blocking, I also know the reality that life doesn't always fit in these little blocks. And so it's very important to have white space in your calendar, right? Know how many Zoom calls you can have in a row before you need a break. And build that in, right? Because we're all different people. We all act differently. If morning is your top productive time, then put in that block there for you to really focus on those higher level, bigger tasks that you want to complete in that morning time. If morning is not your time, then don't, put your biggest client in the first thing in the morning.
Donna, you have built your business. Like, this isn't just something you advise other people to do. You have built your business from nothing, from an idea, into what it is today. And you have to lead at a different level today than you did a year ago or 3 years ago. And your business will need you to lead at a different level a year from now or 5 years from now. How do you stay on top of your game? How do you level up your leadership skills so that you will be the leader your business needs you to be, your team needs you to be?
I truly believe that we all need a mentor, a coach, an advisor, right? Whatever that you want to call that. And so I will always have someone in my back pocket for just that, right? So whether it's a weekly mastermind or a weekly meeting with a coach, that can look different in different seasons. But I do believe it's important that we have someone who we're learning from, because yes, we're good at our craft, but there's always areas we need some personal development and professional development in. And so it's really important that we have that. The other piece I really like to do is quarterly planning. So I will set up my 12-month goals, but then every quarter I'm looking again and saying, okay, where am I? What was my 12-month goals? What's really going to be my focus for this next quarter?
Mm-hmm.
And then communicating that with my team, right? Because I want my team to be rowing in the same direction I'm going. And if I'm constantly switching, oh, let's do this, let's do that, I'm confusing my team. It's difficult for them to know what the priorities are. So I like to have that time to set up, okay, what's my focus? What are we really promoting? How are we marketing? What's the strategy? And then communicating that with the team so they also know what the priorities are.
Yeah, somebody from the outside looking in may look at Donna and say, wow, man, Donna's just got it all together. Like she's doing this right. Like she doesn't face the same challenges and issues that I face as an entrepreneur. You know, can you talk about that for a minute? I mean, have you faced challenges in your business and as a leader?
100%, and will continue to do so. Right? It's a journey. It is a journey, but I have the mindset that I want to be 1% better this week than I was last week. Right? So what can I do in leading my team, in leading my company, in dealing with my relationships, whatever it is, what can I do to be 1% better? And I think that for me, I'm a very objective person and I like to track where I'm at and what I'm doing. It just helps. It also helps to keep me, focused on what those things are. Right. And so I will track things that I'm working on. Right. For example, I enjoy having some exercise in the morning, but every once in a while I'll fall off that train and stop doing it, and then I need to get back on again. So when I have a tracker that just, did I do my exercise today? When it's in my calendar, it's top of mind for me, and then I can make sure that I'm, prioritizing that.
You're a continual learner. Like I get that sense from our conversations that you are always learning, always wanting to grow, and you embody that growth mindset. Is there a book that has made a big difference in your journey that you would tell every leader listening, hey, you need to put this on your to-read list?
Yes, I have two.
Yeah, bring them.
Yes. So the first one is Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Love that book.
So many golden nuggets in that book. If you've read it, go back and read it again, because I find when you go back, you'll find things that you didn't even see the first time, right? But helpful for business and also life. I find his his writing is so good. And then my other one, of course, I'm biased towards operations, but it's called Traction. And so good in helping you sort of visualize, my leaders, my 90-day goals, and how I'm going to progress through them.
At a certain point in our lives, we begin to think about legacy. And I wonder, have you given any thought to this, to what you want your legacy as a leader to be?
Good point. Not a lot, to be honest with you. But I think really, if I look at it, I want to be able to have entrepreneurs live the life that they wanted when they started. Right? Like we said at the beginning, that time freedom, that financial freedom, and location freedom. And so many of us don't have any of those freedoms, to be honest with you. And I think really it's about, taking a step back, looking at the bigger picture, and letting go of things that aren't helping our business.
So good.
Right? Because I found, even for myself, you start layering on different tactics as you're growing, because you hear, oh, that business is doing this. Maybe I should start incorporating that. Oh, this sounds good. I'm going to do that. But then we don't take the step back and say, okay, was that strategy helpful? 3 to 6 months down the road, am I seeing a return on investment? Or am I continuing to do this because I think I should?
Yep. Wow. I've seen that over and over and over again, looking only at my own journey. If we look at so many others, right? Like, I think everybody would resonate with that. That's so powerful. Often, Donna, people are going to leave an episode like this, a conversation like this, with one big idea. If you could define what you want that one big idea to be that people walk away with, what would you want it to be?
I would say that time is your greatest asset as a visionary leader, and be intentional with it. So we all have the same 24 hours in our day, but how we use it makes a huge difference. And James Clear actually has a quote about that, there's a myth there isn't enough time. There's enough time, but it's how we spend it and what we put our energy towards, right?
Yeah.
So 1 hour of planning can save us 10 hours of implementation. Yeah. So as a visionary leader, really put on that hat, think and act like a CEO, and do that 1 hour of planning. Makes a huge difference.
Powerful. I know people are going to want to stay connected with you and continue to learn from you, Donna. What is the best way for them to do that?
So my website is ceoamplify.ca. So they can pop over there. I have a few free resources which they're welcome to download. And I also have a podcast, CEO Amplify. So for those who are looking for another podcast to have a listen to, you're welcome to check those out.
And I want to encourage everybody listening to go check both of those out. I think you will not regret it. Donna, thank you for being so honest today, so open, and so generous with your insights, your wisdom, and your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me for this episode today. As we wrap up, I'd love for you to do two things. First, subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. And if you find value here, I'd love it if you would rate it and review it. That really does make a difference in helping other people to discover this podcast. Second, if you don't have a copy of my newest book, Catalytic Leadership, I'd love to put a copy in your hands. If you go to catalyticleadershipbook.com, you can get a copy for free. Just pay the shipping so I can get it to you, and we'll get one right out. My goal is to put this into the hands of as many leaders as possible. This book captures principles that I've learned in 20 plus years of coaching leaders in the entrepreneurial space, in business, government, nonprofits, education, and the local church. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn to keep up with what I'm currently learning and thinking about. And if you're ready to take a next step with a coach to help you intentionally grow and thrive as a leader, I'd be honored to help you. Just go to catalyticleadership.net to book a call with me. Stay tuned for our next episode next week. Until then, as always, leaders, choose to be catalytic.
Thanks for listening to Catalytic Leadership with Dr. William Attaway. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss the next episode. Want more? Go to catalyticleadership.net.